My name's Bill Pintaric. I'm here with my brother David Pintaric. We're with William R. Pintaric and Associates, a wealth management firm based in Youngstown, Ohio. Today we're going to talk about something that all new clients have to go through. It's called the new account form.
Bill, when I first started the business, the amount of information we collected was dramatically less than it is today. Even before I started it, what you were asking clients when they open up an account probably fit on a small card.
It was about a 5x7 postcard. It asked for name, address, telephone number, social security number, annual income, and probably their net worth. Didn't even require a customer's signature.
Did it ask the date of birth, or just ask if they were of age?
They were asked of age. They did not even ask for a date of birth. So if were you over age 21, that was it. And over the years, and you have to understand, we're talking now, in our case, it's almost 40 years, it's evolved from that little postcard to now multiple pieces of paper. And we've all gone through this as customers of whether or not you buy a house, you buy a car.
Oh, I think it's like 17 documents you sign when you buy or lease an automobile, depending on whether you finance or not. For us opening an account, we've got the new account form, which depending on where the account is custody, whether it be on platform brokerage at National Financial or Pershing, or directly at the product vendor like the insurance company or a mutual fund company, there's going to be another documentation. And then there's obviously some disclosure forms that are going to be specific. Right. And we won't get into those, but those are going to be specific for each type of transaction or business relationship. So go to the new account form. What information are we getting? I think it all depends on the type of client. But let's talk about just an individual coming in for their own personal accounts.
All right. So we're going to go for the basic information. We're going to ask for your full name, including your middle initial or your full middle name. We're going to ask for your social security number. We're going to ask for your date of birth. We're going to ask whether you're married or not. We're going to ask your gender.
Okay, you've got three things that people are going to ask why. Why is my date of birth important? Why am I married? And where do you live? Why is it important?
Well, first of all, where you live.
For us, it's licensing.
It's licensing. As a registered representative of any broker-dealer, we have to be licensed in the states where our clients reside. Each state requires you to get licensed with them before you conduct business. So we need to know where you live.
Fair enough.
The age, obviously, you have to be at least 18 to be able to sign for yourself when you own any kind of securities product.
But it goes well beyond that.
It does, because obviously if you are 75 years old, your investments might be set up differently than you are 30 years old.
Well, time horizon. 75, what is your life expectancy?
Correct.
Long-term for 75 is different than long-term for a 30-year-old.
And that will then predicate on what kind of investments we could recommend to you.
Marital status.
Marital status, you want to know whether you want to leave this to somebody, your spouse, whether or not you're going to register it in your name alone or in your spouse's name as well. That's known as joint tenants, typically with rights of survivorship, but there are others.
Or transfer of death.
Transfer on death, which means on the fact that when you die, you automatically will leave that investment to your named beneficiaries. Before, you'd have to go through your will. Now you could actually put it on the account. It cleans up something when you pass it.
How do we identify somebody? Say I come in and say I'm Bill Pintaric.
Well, I'm going to ask to see your driver's license. Okay.
So that proves that who you're saying is who you are.
Right. So we'll ask for your driver's license info. We will either make a copy of it or capture that driver's license information.
Now, there's a practical reason, but there's a regulatory reason as well.
Correct. After the 9/11 attacks, the government came out with a law which is called the Patriot Act. And it makes it much more important for us to verify that you are who you are, and that we could do a background check on you to ensure that you are not working for any kind of terrorist organization or criminal organization. And most firms do what's called a background check on a client, and that makes it easier to verify you.
That's interesting. I don't think people realize how much information is available on us by the government. Where we've lived, what kind of cars we've owned, those kind of things. I've gone through this occasionally when I say, okay, what 2 cars have you owned? And they give me 5 multiple choice, and 2 of them were ones I've owned. I'm thinking, where do they get this from? But there is tracking information.
Right, yeah. They know more about us than we actually realize.
So this is part of what's called CIP, Customer Identification
Identification program, right? Okay, also known as Know Your Customer.
Okay, so let's go down the Know Your Customer role, and that's significant in our business because for us to make a suitable recommendation, we have to know your customer.
Know your customer.
Let's go into Know Your Customer some more. What other questions are we going to
Okay,
ask?
so we're going to ask about your annual income, your liquid net worth, which is your net worth minus your house. So we're looking for that. We're looking for a time horizon. How long do you think you're going to hold your investments? Now, it's not an absolute because things change, obviously. But if you say, I'm only willing to invest this money for 2 years versus I want to invest this money for 10 years plus, that's going to help us make a recommendation. Because obviously,
Two different types of vehicles.
Two types of vehicles, okay, depending on your time horizon. The other thing we're going to ask is your risk tolerance. And this is where you're going to need to talk to your financial professional, because this will be an in-depth conversation. Are you a conservative investor? Are you an aggressive investor? Are you somewhere in between? And that basically goes to how comfortable are you with fluctuations in investment and in the stock market, and how you would react to those.
And there's going to be a certain amount of education in
Absolutely.
that back and forth between your financial professional and yourself, because some people say, I never want to lose money, but if you invest it in a way that never lose money, you may never make any money.
Correct,
also.
yeah.
So you have to weigh that risk.
Exactly. That is definitely an in-depth conversation with your financial professional. We're also going to ask about what kind of experience you've had with certain investments, whether it be stocks, bonds, mutual funds, options,
Annuities.
limited partnerships. Again, all these questions are there so that we could get an idea of what you would be comfortable with and whether or not our recommendation will make sense to you as an individual. There is no cookie cutter approach here because everybody is unique. So we have to do an analysis on whether or not this is a suitable investment.
So
for
we
you.
gather a lot of information.
A lot of information. We're going to ask about if you have any assets somewhere else other than with us.
Not to
Okay?
be prying, but to just get a fuller picture of their financial situation.
Exactly. For instance, we're going to ask, do you have any other investments that you're not going to invest with you or I? And we do that so that we don't maybe duplicate. We also do it because it's possible that if you have money with, let's say, a mutual fund company, and we want to put it into a mutual fund company, if you tell us what you have, we might be able to combine them to get quantity discounts.
They're called breakpoints in our industry, but quantity discount is a common term that people are familiar with.
So the more money you have in a certain mutual fund company, the less expensive it becomes to buy. So that's one of those questions.
Contact information.
Yeah,
Do we ask phone numbers,
phone numbers,
addresses?
email addresses like that, a way to get hold of you. One of the other things that is a fairly new phenomenon is the trusted contact information. And that is someone that you would feel comfortable if we would contact, or if something should happen to you, and they would be able to contact us. Okay, so
So
that we have.
that was generated for older people, which, by the way, you qualify.
Yeah, I know. I
But
qualify.
we don't. It's really a good idea for everybody. You know, we deal with some younger clients, and should the parents, let's say it's a 25-year-old young man that comes in here, do you want the parents to be at least aware that this relationship? You know, we don't divulge private information, but if somebody calls and says, "Hey, is he a client?" You know, what can we say to a trusted person?
Well, it depends on what you tell us you're allowed to do. Some people will give us written authorizations that you are allowed to disclose everything. Other clients are saying, I just don't want you to disclose anything at all.
Only in a time of emergency.
Only in time of emergency, and just, I have a client that I'm working with who is a widow, okay? She has no family. So we had a long conversation on this, and she goes, well, my trusted contact is me. And I'm going, that doesn't work.
That
Defeats the whole purpose,
Yes.
okay? Because I don't know if you're, living or not. So she had to call a couple friends to see if they would be willing to act in that capacity. And they're there so that if something happens to her, they can inform me, and I could work with them if she gets into the hospital or something like that. She is not willing to have them get a lot of information, other than to contact me and let me know what's going on. But she's pretty well set up. She's got a lot of things in writing, so if anything should happen, it's automatically taken care of. But everybody's different.
Sure.
So that trusted contact is, I think, very important.
There's a few other questions that we'll ask for somebody comes in. We're going to ask if they're associated with another broker-dealer.
Correct.
We're going to ask if they're an insider to a publicly traded company.
Right, or a 10% owner of a publicly traded company.
Or if they're part of a labor union,
Correct.
management of the labor union or something like that. Why are these questions asked?
Well, we do that for the financial personnel because we want to be able to make sure that, one, we're supervising the activity correctly. Because as financial professionals, we're held to a different standard. We're not allowed to invest in initial public offerings. Mm-hmm. That could get us into a lot of trouble. If you are associated with another firm, we are required to notify that firm
And get permission.
And send duplicate statements to that firm.
How about an insider?
We want to make sure that you don't have access to information that the general public does not have, because that'd be considered insider trading.
It's considered what happened to Martha Stewart.
Yes.
And then the last one is 10% owner. Similar
to that, again, you might have information that is not available to the general public.
And with unions, I think it has to do with...
Well, how you manage the union money. It's the same thing with government entities. We have to be careful dealing with government entities because it's a conflict of interest there as well.
So this whole discussion is again, a way to explain to you or potential customers not only what questions we'll ask of you, but the reason why. It's not we're being nosy. It's rationally based process. It's not just made up. There's a reason for this. Some of it is good business sense. Some of it is driven by regulatory requirements. But gives you a good idea of what to expect when you open up an account at Wilmar, Pintaric and Associates.
Right, and we're there. It's for your protection. Seriously, we are not doing this to be intrusive. We are doing this so we could have a reasonable basis for our recommendations.
Thank you, everybody. Look forward to talking to you again.